Welcome to the Carl DeGregorio Desk Session 42, I guess, or maybe we could call this a bonus desk session. I am jumping on a day early because my usual time of recording is going to be consumed with, oddly enough, the very thing that this vlog started with, or solo pod, whatever the fuck this thing happens to be, YouTube channel discussion. I'm going to be doing the one-man show tomorrow for a very few people, and few meaning literally could be 3 or 4. Lucky them. And let's start saying that, yeah, they're getting to see, Born to Run in the studio, bro. No, but hopefully we have a good go of it. Hopefully my cheese and cured meat tray from the grocery store is going to be responded to as well. And I'll bring some seltzers. That's it. And then, but I had a run through today by myself, which I ran against the clock, and even with all cylinders hitting and no interruptions and a flow state and reading pretty well and picking up off the page, I'm still about an hour 10 minutes. And so that is probably a true time, and probably will be longer with the sound cues interrupting. But I think that point is to then maybe be more precise with use a scalpel, not a sledgehammer, after I get some feedback. So I'm leaving it as is. I will wink wink apologize to the folks who aren't going to get a 55-minute show and get a 1 hour. They're going to get a 65-minute show down the line. And in the realm of production and in the realm of being thrilled about being someday presenting this in a really nice theater setting, an hour and 10 might be ideal. It just happens not to be, in my mind, where I want it to go. But if it were a tight 110 every night and it was in production and there was sets and lights and seats and ushers and all that awesome stuff, then maybe an hour 10 is a light night at the theater, but a pretty bang for buck kind of show. So ultimately, to travel it, to enter festivals, I think 55, 60 even would be, I think also I've seen, people have reached out to me about their solo shows, and they're like, look, it's 58 minutes, I promise. It's this sort of, and I want to get out of that thinking. I want to get, I promise you all only that it's the best I can do. I promise you that it means a lot to have you there, but I will do my best. But I'm not going to set it up that thank God I cut it down so you don't have to suffer. It's like, no, I don't know how long Hamilton is. I don't know how long some of these appointment theater engagements are, long as fuck, and I'm trying to write one that's up there. So and I hope, and I'm in a weird fugue state of a hyper excitement, and a day before I was sure this thing won't hold water. So I am just gonna, excuse my belch on a public platform, but I am just gonna hope for the best and do what I gotta do, and feel good about the to-do list. It's my to-do list. That's been the blessing of my ankle injury, is I've been given the gift of my time to myself, and I think that is the natural way of living for me, and it harkens me back, coincidentally, with the play's themes of an emerging artist. And one of the things that, if I ever bellyache and whine, I was able to study this shit in college for 4 years of running lines, learning speech, all of these things that I now have gotten back to, but only because I was alleviated the pressure of work, and it feels good, and I want to get it over the hill to where this is what I do. And then the pressures will be the pressures I've had this week, which were, we did a Q to Q run through, which, man, that thing took 4 hours. And we were just going from place to place to place for song cues that ultimately I don't know we'll ever get to use because of clearances and copyrights. But we wanted to set a mood so that what people watching are entertained, and also visualizing it so that they can see the next steps, and then to help me get to next steps. But the effort of going through 28 pages of this is where you hand me the bottle, this is where you play this song, this is where you fade out that one, it took 4 hours, and it was the best, least neurotic, time-consuming work that was not a drudgery of any kind, other than my back tightening up on me. One of the genius aspects of how I've crafted this thing is that I have a recurring bit where I'm taking shots of liquor, but it's iced tea, right? And it's just like, it's worked out that an hour of talking, I am quenching my thirst, and it's thematic. So I'm really proud of myself for that. And I'm getting raspberry iced tea. It doesn't look enough like fucking liquor, but I'm gonna get the raspberry for a little pop of flavor and brighten my mouth as I get my way through the show, because I'm not gonna method act that it should taste like shit, like real booze. I can fake wince that it's whiskey, but and I'm already giving away stuff for the unseen future audiences. But I had to go and get the bottle and get the. I had to go to. I went to stores. I was buying props that are. One thing I'm short of is chainmail. I'm not able to find a chainmail vest, which I'll need. And again, this may be cut, so it's probably better I didn't invest. And I can use a tactical vest that I bought for an audition as a prop. So I have some cool things to try to get through, and in my quote unquote bag of tricks. And it's going to be fun, and I'm already grateful for the opportunity. Also, I'm proud of myself for making it this far. This would be probably harder to do were I in corporate America, or were I just a different type of fella, and I get to do this. So I'm trying to piggyback on the great Coleman Domingo's sort of. It's been out there in the internet, and he's being interviewed on a red carpet, and what a generous dude, because all the way through the things I've seen in his award journey and his new A-list status, I peeped him in The Butler as a very dangerous, in the best way, presence. His presence was always very. He's just a guy who really made the most of his opportunities, and he's a welcome presence on screens, and he's offering these notions of how he didn't live in the notion of a struggling actor, that he lived in the, okay, I get to do it. This is going okay. Even when he was bartending, he said he would stay curious. He would stay on his grind and get to do plays. And so I have to remember that I can flip my narrative. I did a play in New York that I wrote, produced, and starred in. That is not an actor who's getting his ass kicked, That's someone who tried to take matters into his own hands. Whether it worked or got him to the next thing, that did get me to the next thing, which was coming to L.A. And yes, there were down moments, but L.A. turned out okay too, And what's to say this won't? Or what's to say this is just not a stepping stone? And thank you, Coleman Domingo, for that generous way of reframing the whole thing. These are not enlistments in army warfare. There's a great scene. I think it's Tony Shalhoub. There was that movie about the '08 financial crash, and these CEOs of all the 5 major banks have to come to Congress to talk, and this guy gets out of a limo. Tony Shalhoub's marching up the stairs, and the guy goes, Jesus Christ, can you believe this is going to be a tough day? And he goes, hey, it's not storming the beaches at Normandy, so fucking sack up, you know? And that's a great line and a great sentiment, and also, you know, and now I have to sort of make sure I'm not equivocating too much with the woe is me stuff. I think there's funny things in telling nightmare stories of bad gigs. I think there's a commiseration there rather than a whining about how hard life is. Or it's a glimmer or a time capsule of where that character, i.e. me, was at the time that I was taking these things too hard, too seriously. And so I do have to think about that. Like what would Coleman Domingo say about sections of a one-man show where, you know, you don't want to bring people into the theater, which is a reverent space, and you have to be real sure what you want to say there. And I bring it up, and it's been brought up a bunch of different times, and it was brought up a bunch of times at the Tonys, that this is reverent and sacred spaces, and you know, it's art and commerce coming together, and I dare say it's art, commerce, and worship. Even in that way, yeah, that comes to pass. If you can't hear the church in Dreamgirls, you are not, you know, able to hear. If you can't hear the church in a lot of these musicals, and if you don't see the test of faith in Death of a Salesman, or the consequence of straying, you know, when you see shows about you know, like Angels in America, that's there's faith, or at least the discussion of it. And I'm going to go back. It's getting more fluid, and I think the only way I'm going to ask for feedback, if people will indulge me after an hour and 10 minutes, is, you know, how would you describe this to somebody who asked you what you did last night? Or if somebody said, hey, how was that thing you said you were doing? Oh, it was hopefully great, but it was about this, that, and the other, and done in such a way. And no, that sounds like something my dream always was and always will be to be the kind of dude that could get people to think about things differently to a degree, or being the type of dude you wouldn't expect a certain message from or a certain vibe from. That might be ultimately what the brand becomes, this big bear of a guy that just really wants to sing and dance. But also, you know, I wanted my play to be like, I don't like theater so much. It's always stuffy. It's about subjects I don't care about. I don't like that. To then having nights in the theater where people were like, oh shit, when the big plot dropped. And I remember the director of my show, very accomplished director in New York, who works, I think, at the Mason Gross School. He was brilliant, and he was a mentor since I was 15 years old. He said, if it goes right and we do it right, and you get that demographic where they're going to be hooting and hollering and talking back to the stage, that's not something that you would ever want to do anything but know that you connected and get it back to that, oh shit, you know, you want that. You want to hold while people settle back in because something went crazy in the show. And we had a couple of nights like that. So that was the aim of my show. I was almost the anti-drama school play, because I wanted it to be about the street, the life, bar show, you know, love triangle, infidelity, money, all these things. I was trying to basically put a movie on stage. And for that, if that was the first play someone ever saw, they would be like, I could get into that. I could see that being cool. Like people on stage talking and cursing and, you know, all of that stuff. It was where I was at with that. And I got a few people in there who kind of vibed on it that way. That was vibrant, even from down to my poster, which had a woman and a man in an embrace in these panels. without the, and then the idea that they were embracing that, that was provocative. I wanted all of that smoke. And when I wrote my book, I did not write, hopefully I didn't write with too much flowery language. I wrote in first person, and I wrote as if you could hear me speak, and colloquially, I can't fucking pronounce it, in a colloquial way, so that, let us not forget, everybody mocks people who read at a fourth grade reading level. But I've heard it said that that's the level of writing, and that the comprehension of a fourth grader is where Hemingway wrote, because he was punchy and direct. And so I wrote a book that if you never really could get through a book before, you might get through this one, because it was very familiar. And that's what I'm hoping with the one-man show, is to make it approachable to trepidatious attendees or people who are dragged to it. And I think that harkens back to my stand-up days, when I would be sometimes I'd be that guy on the lineup, the one guy that could make it so that the people out there weren't pissed that they sat through the other guys, or that, because I did a lot of bar shows where, you took over a room, and they didn't want to put, and you'd put guys up, and then, they'd eat it, and then you'd go and, hopefully be the reason that it wasn't a nightmare for people in the room. And I don't want too much of that need to win the room to permeate my work. I want to relax. And I think because it's written material now, and eventually will be committed to memory, as opposed to riffing all the time, which I did on stage, I think I will be able to settle in as a more confident performer, which would then reassure the audience. I actually, in the show, I reassure them three different times. I remind them that, you're in good hands because of my 10,000 hours or my 1,000 times on stage. And I may have to cut that, because I think I have like 3 introductions, and don't bore us, get to the chorus. I think I may have, that's probably the major cut. I don't think it's a 10-minute cut though. So, we'll have to see. But, and just, I have to treat it like an actor, and I have to bend notes and stretch things and try to make them sound like words coming out of a person's mouth. And, if I do it right, then it's almost going to be like, wow, this dude's just standing there fucking talking. You almost want that douche in the crowd to be like, all he's doing is up there talking shit, telling stories. Like, where's the acting? He's not doing, like, where's his hump? Like, he didn't transform. Like, I make fun of that as not the kind of show I'm doing. I'm not trying to do, the one-man show where I'm trying to get you to believe I'm a Russian, sex worker from the 80s, because I want to show you my dialect. I can't even riff in Russian dialect, my friend. Now it's like Eastern European. You don't know what I know. There it is. That's about all I can do. I could do it if I had to, I get my phonetics out and I rework the script. I could get it in 24 hours, but I can't just do the Russian right now. What am I, some kind of trained? In Russia, the circus is sacred. So I did no train the monkey, and now I'm lapsing into Italian. Anyway, it's not that easy to just, for me anyway. I have to get back to writing the dialect and the phonetics so that it's not a guess and it's not a feel, or it's not about how much talent I have or how my ear is. It's literally transposing the vowels and the diphthongs. That's the way I learned it. And I think that's the way that it connects for me. So you're not guessing. That's the whole thing with measurements and notes, and why the one frustrating thing about writing, acting, art, it's not quantifiable. So there is that bit of guessing, and that as a person, that frustrates me. It would frustrate me at work. Like, oh, I think you just poured the... No, you measure it. Why are we fucking guessing, you know? So, and that's part of why I'm prepared. That's why I did the Q to Q, and my good friend really showed up for me and put in we were doing it together, and that's a lot of work. And we changed songs. These songs I thought were saying what I wanted to say weren't working. Obviously, again, I probably won't be able to use those songs in production, but it's the kind of cue that a composer is going to have to understand what I'm going for. And I find all that work exciting. I am indefatigable with that. I could have gone to eat and come back, and if I had either a second act, or if I had to just, hey, let's do it again, I would have been able to. I just couldn't. What's the word? I couldn't impose on people's time like that. And that's ultimately why art, when you are able to make it profitable, it's why you can, part of the show business thing, some of that, the money, or at least being paid enough to live, which is just what we all want in life. But if you could be paid enough to live and do your art, that's where you could really, that's how The Godfather came to be. These were paid, Puzo, you know, there's that show on Paramount about the making of it. Leave the Gun, Take the Cannoli, I think was the Book It reference, but it was about that making of that. And they're not making a lot of money. And then one guy was in debt. They intone or infer that Mario Puzo was in financial strain, and finally capitulated and wrote this pot boiler called The Godfather, and it sold a gazillion copies. And so once they were then collaborating, him and Coppola, on the rewrite or how to make it a script, they were put up in a house, and they were not worried about the bills, and they could grind. And I know, like I said, if I were able to pay or have a production budget, I would probably be rough to work with. I know I would, you know, I would be a lot more indefatigable than the people who are hired to help quote unquote my vision, all that stuff. I've seen these Gary Vaynerchuk, I think is his name. I know him as Gary V. I should be Carl D and just, you know, join the fucking fun of being easier to pronounce. But Gary V is this marketing guy, and he's very ubiquitous. Or I've changed my algorithm where I catch a lot of his content, and one of these founder CEO types was saying, you know, how do I get my employees to care, you know, about care about this as much as I do? And he's like, what? How the fuck can they can't? They won't. They're not supposed to care as much. That's ridiculous. You can make them feel like you care and that you're, you know, going to pay them and be a good boss and a good leader, but you're the one who's supposed to care. And that's, I hope, what the theater and the arts do bring, this idea that everybody does kind of care. And I hope, I don't know how a one-man show is going to bring that esprit de corps to pass, but it's just a stepping stone to maybe someday getting back to doing full-length multi-characters. And I just, it's just nice. It's just a good, rewarding feeling to know that, you know, all of this I'm doing on my own time. I would do it if I had a job, and then if I didn't, I know. I've heard that story about Scott Turow. He's the great writer of lawyer books. He wrote Presumed Innocent, and he wrote his first nonfiction book was 1L, was about being a law student. But you know, he was famous for, you know, riding to work and riding on the train, or maybe that's Grisham. I don't know, but like that's how you know. You know, Stephen King was a school teacher in writing, and I've been lucky to have this time off. But this started way before I hurt myself. But like I will do it on spec, and and you pay me for this. That day, when that day comes, it'll be a welcome day, because I want to do the work. And so if this is a bonus episode, my intent is, I had to talk to you all before, to see before and after, and I will do a death session after. So you're getting the before the first read through of the Return of Otis Redding, and forsake not the days of small beginnings. Just because it's only going to be 4 people in a room tomorrow with me, it's a big start for me, and a big day to get things moving. And if I go back to what I've said weeks before, it's still a we and not a me, even if it's one person talking. And hopefully the generosity of spirit that is imbued in that notion of it's a we, not a me, and that it's a give and not a take, then I'll have done something of service and a lot less of ego. And we'll see. And that'll be how I try to take it forward, and how I try to get to the next stage of this vlog and blog and pod or YouTube channel, the death sessions. It's been very helpful. So this is 43. It could be a bonus, and there could be a 43B or A, but I'm just going to try to keep packing in these things, and maybe start doing them less on the week to week. And if I feel so compelled, there's no reason I can't. Again, why hold back, especially if you got energy. So thanks, and I hope to talk to you soon, and I hope you're up to good things too, and I hope that next time you see me, it'll be a first victory on a way to the title fight with this show. So thanks again. Death Session 42, Carl DeGregorio. Peace.